Lotto. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we should be setting up to go in a minute or two. Once they tell me that the online stuff is good, we'll roll. IG. Okay. Right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Martin Eglogwe, and the program that we are going to have tonight is called Poetry Time at Guthi Abansro. As the name suggests, we are going to be listening to poetry from the Writers Project of Ghana and Guthi Institute Ghana. This program comes on every second month, and so we are anticipating that we'll be back on this one in September. But tonight, I really am very glad to be able to welcome to the stage two poets. One of them I've known for almost a decade or more. The other I've known for just about 2 months, but both of them are really very interesting people. I'm really, really happy that we are going to be able to listen to them tonight. What this program is a themed reading. So we've given some themes to our poets, and they are going to try and give us poems that match the theme very closely. And then we are going to have discussions about their poems as well. And what we wanted to look at for tonight is the idea of society, politics, and history. And we would like to hear the poets' concerns and thoughts about African politics. Would like to center it on the continent, African history and society. We are living in times that are not very certain politically, not only on the continent but across the world. And we would like to hear what our poets have to say about that. And we can also see that the political structures across the continent were given a thorough shaking by the events in Kenya. And so in the light of all those, we want to situate the poet's voice in history and in society as well. So that's the kind of thing that we are going to be talking about for tonight. I want to introduce Ziarly. Ziarly is going by the name Ziarly. Ziarly is a poet. He does performance, and as I was saying in the chit chats before we started, he's also an advocate for autoimmune disease prevention and management. I'm not going to say everything, but he will have the opportunity for a minute or two to tell us more about what he does and how it influences his writing. Our other guest, Jude Idada, is a multiple award-winning screenwriter, poet, novelist, and we've already shared some of the awards that he's won, but he locates both in Nigeria and also in Canada. And in both places, he's picked up awards for his screenwriting. And I really am honored that he's able to join us for tonight. Jude, welcome. Ziarly, welcome.
Blessings. Thank you.
And our audience, those joining us on Zoom, those who are watching on IG, and then those who have been able to join us here tonight in person, I'd like to welcome you to the conversation, which we are going to jump into right away. I'm going to first invite you. Let me start with you, Jude. Just to give us some introductory comments, tell us a little bit about your background. Also, tell us about your writing and maybe if there are any dominant themes in any of your writing. Since you do multi-genre writing, probably tell us more about your poetry.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Martin. As you said, my name is Jude Idada. Speaking to you from Ibadan, actually came in here this morning. I'm honored to be here to share my work with the audience in person and via the internet. And my work is expansive. It's historical in nature. It's also personal, very interpretative. I'm an observer, and I call myself a thief of persons, of experiences, of events. So what I see, I photograph mentally. I document it, so I like shelf it. I interpret it or distill it for the central message, and then I share it with my audience, both on the paper and then over social media, or via other platforms, be it film or stage. So that gives maybe a purview into me as a person. For my core, I'm a humanist at core, so I am concerned with the human experience and exploring it and interrogating our actions, our reactions, and how they, will I say, interpolate with our belief systems, both contemporarily or historically, both the ones we have inherited and the ones we form based on interactions with people we meet across the pathways of life. Um, I have around 8 published works and several unpublished works. As Martin had said, I write for film, I write for stage, and all other mediums. I've been writing on Facebook forever, like 14 days every single day. So, what else about me haven't I shared?
One of the
I
things,
sorry.
No, I was just going to point out that there is this running theater production, which we can also talk about, the one on Sankara. I was really
Okay.
excited to hear about that production. So maybe you share a few words
Yeah.
about it. So.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. One of the most recent things I've been doing, it's going on. I'm touring a play of mine called Sankara, which is a play that explores the last 100 hours in the life of Captain Thomas Sankara of blessed memory, as the assassinated former head of state of Burkina Faso. It's part of the Reading Right initiative, which is focused on getting people back to reading books, and not just reading books because of the fun of it, but reading books because of the enlightenment that it brings. Sankara is the main text for this year. It's going across 12 countries to terminate in Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou, which is where Sankara was from and where he was killed. It taught right there at Goethe Institute, right there in Cantonment in Ghana. It also did the same thing in Nigeria, at Goethe in Nigeria, and also 2 other locations. It's done the same at Benin Republic, Cotonou. It's gone to Togo. It's gone to Cote d'Ivoire, and it keeps moving on. This play was first staged in 2018 in Nigeria. Was celebrated. I spoke on France 24 about Sankara, and the whole core or the impetus of this play is to help awaken the African in Africans, to introduce us to ourselves, to introduce us to the identity challenge. Oh, sorry, not we introduce, to solve the identity challenge and introduce us to that African that we were before the intervention of imperialism, as it were. So I can just put that in a nutshell. Sankara, the last 100 hours of his life, touring Africa. Hopefully, it will even go further and be staged internationally, so that we're not just only speaking to Africans, we're also speaking to, I don't want to say our oppressors, but our colonial masters, in quotes, or the architects of imperialism, so that it is not just enlightenment of ourselves, but also enlightenment of themselves. Because as Sankara said, we're all victims of a global agenda that will I say claims to put one people above the other for the gain of a select people. Yeah.
So I think that's quite thorough. I'm glad you got to speak about Sankara, especially as it is a play which is it's touring, and we are hoping at some point it does show in full in Accra. Ziarly.
Yes, sir.
You, on the other hand, I did mention your advocacy, and you're already quite a recognizable figure when it comes to the poetry scene in Accra. And not just because you are very well dressed all the time, because of your work in general. But the same way that Jude has basically given us an idea of who he is and his background. I'd like to allow you to do the same.
I honestly thought you were going to do that for me.
No, there's this thing about the horses too.
Okay. They say you cannot show a painting to a man without eyes, but you can if he has ears with words. I'm a poet. I've been writing since I could put words together to make sentences to make sense to the people who hear them. I'm an artist. I do a lot of abstract paintings, and then I do a lot of pencil ink sketches. So I have a lot of that also. I'm an advocate for autoimmune diseases because it seems to be the future. Everybody's getting sick, and it seems to everybody's getting chronically sick. And one of the things that keep coming up is autoimmune diseases. So it's manifesting in every way. It's conditions caused by the immune system. So wherever your immune system has access to in the body, is where it can be affected. So it's conditions caused by every organ in the body, most cells of the body, and inspired and driven by the immune system. And so I find myself being the creative director for, I initially volunteered for the organization that I work with, the Rheumatology Initiative. And then eventually I'll become the creative director. And so I'm the face or the sound and the tone of the organization. But I love words. I love poetry. I love what you can do with it. So for me, it's more experimental in my execution. Every time you hear a poem of mine, chances are I was experimenting with something. Yes. And so what else haven't I captured?
Well, I picked on one thing that I thought I should push you a little bit on, even though it's early in the day. Let me just check out from the sound people. Is Ziarly sound okay?
Can everybody hear me all right?
Okay, fantastic. So I just, you said you loved what you can do too with words, you know, which I find interesting because for a writer to output words and use them for something would also suggest, at least in my lived experience, there's a kind of feedback loop. The words also do something to the writer, you know. And so in your writing, it's either you are enlightened in some way, you realize some things that you never knew before, or there's some sort of reaction to your work that gives you, there's something that changes yourself.
Take back from me.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I don't think I've ever looked at it like that. But it's true. It's true. You see, I'm even choking up. It's enlightening. It's fulfilling. And sometimes it's heavy in terms of the emotions that it would demand from me. You know, it's funny because I used to destroy my poems when I write them, after I write them, and I've read them for a period of time. Because what used to happen is when I go back to the page, I used to write on paper. I used to feel so drawn to the words I had written or the experience that I had created, so much so that it literally affected me. And the only way to break off from it was to destroy my work. So Never really thought about it like that, but I've lived that experience that you're saying. It's very enlightening for me.
Okay, well, good to know that some of your work survived for us. Listen to tonight. Yeah, we must force you to publish quickly so that it will be out of your hands. So for the way the program will run is that we'll give a theme to either of the poets, and then they are going to deliver on it. But we will break for any questions that are available from the audience, and for those who are online, once you send the messages, I'll pick them up on my phone, and then we can share them. And those who are here, if you raise your hands at any point in time, we'll be able to pass the microphone over to you to hear your question or your comments. So let's start. I have the first theme, which actually is no theme because I didn't select a theme for the first round. I wanted the poets themselves to choose something they want to begin with. So let's start with you, Jude. Do you have a poem directly from any theme of your own choosing?
Yeah, okay. So, I have something I want to share. Basically, it's a poem about my relationship with the supernatural, with the primordial, and how it shapes my way of confronting societal stereotypes, belief systems, and the future. So it's called Apostasy. You condemned me even before you created me. You knew my tomorrow even before I lived my today. You say you have full authority over me and know all there is to know about me. But if I prove you wrong, will I brand you a liar? Will I demystify the treasure of divinity, you who hang the title sinner over me? If I stray from the laws you have laid down for me, but if I reveal the inconsistency of your words, will I challenge the infallibility of your presence? That essence you claim is the source of me, since without you, you say there cannot be me. The titles pour on you, all-knowing, all-merciful, all-powerful. Yet if you know all and forgive all and conquer all, I ask you, what then do you need from me? Why does your existence seem to rotate around me? I, who you claim is just like the stones, plentiful, replaceable, yet you seem to draw a certain energy from my undiluted praise. It is like without me, there really cannot be you, since it seems you are you because I am me, a mysterious relationship hidden in the archives of time. You came first, then somehow you needed me to be a better you. So you created a whole new beginning that revolves around me. Human attributes you have, jealousy, rage, joy, all because of me. Simple me. To hold such power over you, even though you claim I am nothing compared to you. I feel you created sin all because of me. Something to test the love for you that emanates from me. But how can you say I sinned if you already knew I will sin? Since if I don't sin, then I have proven you really didn't know I will sin. This is the quagmire of understanding you that proves the death of me. After all, knowing my Father should be the sole desire of me. To follow you blindly is what seems to be the gospel you preach. Since thinking deeply, pondering logically, will reveal the fallibility of you, the disrobing of you that might actually be the disrobing of me, lifting me high on a pedestal that might be the final unraveling of me. It is like a jigsaw puzzle that can never be finished. So I wonder, what did your son mean by the statement, it is finished? This battle that the word says rages all because of me. Good and evil fighting to the death just for the ownership of me. This me, who is supposed to be nothing but a fleeting existence, here today, gone tomorrow, countless like the sands of the beach. There must be something intrinsically valuable about me, a multiplier effect that seems to eternally evolve me. Because why else should all of antipaleotic history be like a preparation, a foundation laying for the coming into existence of man? The tempestuous, climates tempered, all because of me. The ferocious dinosaurs annihilated, all because of me. I must have not only been intrinsically special, but absolutely necessary for the evolution of all of existence and the maturation of you. Why else would you build paradise all because of me? If it is not that infinity called eternity also needs me. For with your words you say, even the condemned shall burn forever. So that means the soul of man is indestructible, living forever like you are. Doesn't this mean that there is an equal of you in me? And something in all of creation exists or completes all because of me. Now I hear an angry rumbling in the firmaments above, a flashing of fire among gathering and darkening clouds. I must rein in these thoughts that question your true relationship with me, or risk confronting the vicious wrath of you who claim to be the creator of me. Okay, so that's my poem. Yeah.
Yeah, the title matches the poem. I mean, so closely, and that's the approach state. So that I didn't expect that we would dive this deep into philosophy, but I feel that you actually dealt with what we would call the anthropic principle very strongly. Everything exists really because of us, of you. I mean, you put yourself firmly in the middle of it. Um, Apart from the fact that you were more or less going through the thoughts that one would have if they were looking at Christian religion very closely, I one thing that struck me was, where did you find any space in terms of an African realization of religious self? Because this, almost all the questions that you've asked, as one would say, are firmly from European religious Christian point of view. Did you find any African space in there?
Okay, it's very interesting because someone like me, I was born into an elitist family who was firmly based in neo-imperialistic religious systems. I know nothing, at least as at that time, I knew nothing other than the religious beliefs that were handed down to me. And where I was and where I am are totally two different places. I am creating a certain amalgam of understanding of the religious as it were. You can see right here, I don't know if you can see it on camera, I'm wearing a crucifix. Yes. So even though I question this who the divine is, I am still trapped in these inherited belief systems. And that is why you see I end the poem by saying I have to rein in these thoughts before. So even though we who are born into these neo-imperialist religious systems, even though we question it, we still find it so difficult to abandon it and move into the traditional belief system of our forefathers, as it were. You know, so yes, there are people who are lucky, who even at this time, their parents have opened up the doors of certain religious curiosity, or even the practices they see at home, where they can see really, will I say, African traditional religions being practiced. But I didn't have that kind of, I would call it privilege and luxury. I wish I did. So it will help in my terms of references. So I am searching for that, the African religious belief systems, but also dealing with the eternal guilt complex that comes with Western religious systems. So it's a very personal poem. It's a very individual discourse with the primordial and asking these questions that plague me. Why do I believe these things? When I think about these things, it is hard to believe it. It is hard to understand it. But yet, the religion in itself says you don't have to question, you just have to accept. So there I am questioning, and at the end, I am accepting it. Just to answer your question, why there is nothing that is very African about it, because it is a poem of truth and it's a personal poem. If I spoke traditional in it, it would be me pretending to be that which I'm not. But that which I want to be, but I haven't yet become.
I really like the poem and your explanation, because I think that for many people in contemporary society, myself included. This is a reality. But one of the things that I would like to see at some point is someone who is steeped in traditional religion, also taking a look at it and critiquing it to the extent that you have done the Christian religion. But I suppose that's a conversation for another day. Ziarly.
Yes, Martin. That's a beautiful piece, by the way. I think it's what afflicts most of us, all of us, trying to find our own religion, breaking away from what we were introduced to as children. Okay. So I have the liberty of choosing the poem.
Yes.
Okay.
You are not constricted.
So this poem, like a few of my poems, is untitled. And after we are done, we could talk about it.
Sure.
Last night I danced with a woman who wasn't mine. She smelled ripe like cocoa beans. I imagined she tastes like chocolate. She had the body of a god and skin as dark and rich as the Arabica coffee. Her hair was jet black and had a shimmer like oil crude lit by the moonlight. Her lips were full. Even in my mind, I began to drool. If she were fruit, I would pluck off her. If she were light, I would glow in her. Her body was soft and ample, tantalizing to the touch. Last night, I danced with a woman who wasn't mine. We danced like the caterpillar in his wings, like the rains in the winds, like the ocean moving to meet the shore, shh, and like the skylark was made to make song. We danced in the ripples of rhythms ancient and modern. We danced within the beatings of hearts thumping like wild drumming. She held me close. Last night, like the weaving of kente being woven, like a fly stuck in the intricate patterns of the spider web waiting to be devoured, I moved to her song and she to my melody. Between our unrehearsed dance, there was absolute conformity. Who was I not to dance with this woman who wasn't mine? By the fireside and by the thundering of the sky and flashing of the light, by the giggles and guttural muffled laughs of lovers in secrets, hidden by the darkness of night so none could see. Last night, as the crickets joined the live bass band, when the band played a high life tune, when our hair speckled and stood turned on by the croonings of the vocals of the wild night's live sounds. Last night, to the melodies of music of different eras, we palungud and Aduad, and broke our backs in Agbaja. We jammed the patampa and slow jammed the pacha. We danced, performing this like a ritual moving in many lifetimes. She overwhelming me like the sounds of the Sahel, she burning into me like the fires of the savannah. Last night, I danced with a woman who wasn't mine.
Yeah, thank you, Ziarly. And I'm going to pick on something that you have harped on almost like a motive in the poem. And this is that the woman wasn't yours. And so listening to the poem, I was thinking, wouldn't it work if it was a woman? I mean, and I was thinking that the poem would work, but then there's this insistence on something forbidden. And I am picking on that to ask that you should explain out why that idea of not owning the woman becomes a repeated motif in the poem.
Okay, thank you. The fact that I do not own a woman and she's a woman I desire, that's the catch, isn't that? Okay. For her, she represents a lot of things for me. It could be, for me, at this point, religion. She might be the embodiment of whatever, like I was saying to you, like I was saying to Jude, these are the things that we've been trying to, for what he was talking about, these are the things that we were trying to also own or claim and redefine. So she embodying all the things that a man would want or I'd want in a woman, but the knowledge that she doesn't belong to me, and so for whatever it is that we are doing at this moment, it's for a fleeting time. And so if I'm committed to whatever it is, if it's a dance, it's going to be beautiful. I'm going to be all in. If I'm going to learn something that is going to change my life, I'm going to be all in. But nothing will last forever.
Yeah, but for me, I also feel, and of course, I mean, you've given us the poem, so it's out of your hands now. We it how we like, and I'm just thinking in terms of the fact that for some reason, human beings are so strongly attracted to things that are not theirs. Yes. And I'm sure Jude with his apostasy poem will count this as one of the primordial sins of man or of human desiring what really is out of their hands. But we go on. Let's move on now to the themes of the evening. And one of the things that I wanted us to discuss is the idea of our current African political situation. And when we take a look at the poems that were coming out, or the writing in general that was coming out of the continent immediately after independence, after the country started becoming independent, a lot of them actually were very focused on the political situation, and I would like to hear from you if you have any thoughts, any poems that look at that theme of our current political situation as well. And again, I'm going to go over first to Jude, and let's hear what you have, Jude.
Okay, let us see. Just a minute.
And I will also take this opportunity to say that if you have any comments or questions, you're welcome to share with us, either from online or those in the audience here. There's a microphone that can go around. Jude.
Okay. So this poem is called Soro Soke, which means in Yoruba, means speak up. Voices howled like the Sirocco from the arena of monetized gates, where 2, 4, and 8-wheelers crawled through this hallowed island of mirages, housing pseudo-realities, the haves and the have-nots. It was the age of forced hibernation to save the living from the virus that was killing, the unmasked, the masked, and the healing. Cautious fear morphed into stewing anger, as from the shadows whispers spread of brutality, of those who were sworn to protect and not project, jaundiced beliefs of what is good or what is evil, uniformed harbingers of death acting as judge, jury, and executioners, of the saplings who meander life bravely hustling, dreadlocks, backpacks, tinted screens, SUVs, a signage of crime, an excuse to rape, pillage, and kill, oppressing a people against their will. And like those that came before them, they resisted, building fortresses and seizing fortresses, a phalanx of courage confronting the despicable. And unlike those who came before, this time, like the George Floyds and the Arab Springs, the martyrs who burned spits of fires on house parliaments, their courage was televised. On mounted flat screens and mobile blue streets, the protest, the digging in and the scattering, chased by heated metal, raining blood and gore, that night on the gated streets. October 20th, like June 10th. when those who cared not attacked those who cared, in their bid to unalive a status quo that was changing. We will remember them, the young, the brave, and those who refused to live as a slave in their country of birth and their nation of pillory. The storm gathers across the unseen horizon. And when the rain falls once again, it will be in accompaniment of the riotous chants of a generation. Yes, a generation, Gen Zs, the alphas, and those not yet living. Like they did in Kenya and places afar, do we hear of the heroes that once were, the heroes whose acts have disappeared into oblivion, the heroes who died so that we might live. Sankara, Lumumba, Marcel, Senghor, and the others that I can mention, and those I don't even know. There will be a time where the vote is not enough to usher the change desired, and the monies and gifts shared are not enough to buy a conscience ravaged. I hear it even now, rolling over me like hot liquor. My heart is awakened, my mind tempered, my muscles awake. Slowly, 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 as I hear them chant, Sorrow Soke, Sorrow Soke, Sorrow Soke. That's it. Blessings.
Okay, so I think I should practice my Yoruba a little. So, Suki, speak up.
Yes.
I took a few lines from there, and one of the most striking was when you say that there'll be a time when we realize that the vote is not enough. And I think that maybe generally we begin to feel that we are not being properly served, I mean, on the continent by the democracy, by voting. And I saw quite graphically in the poem you describing protests, but this time not against some imperial system, protests against our own kith and kin who happen to be in power. Tell us a little bit more about the poem.
Yeah, so the poem is basically based on the NSAS protests and the Arab Spring and all the events that have happened in the past from the Black Lives Matter and even the ones that came before. And that's why I said in the poem, of those I know and those I don't even know. It's very important that when a society is in the developing stage, we cannot take the kind of models that are working for a society that is already developed and expect them to work for a society that is developing. Take, for instance, America or Canada. When I tell people that, do they know that there was a time when the Canadians went and burnt down the White House? They have no idea. But there was a time because the Canadians were British and the Americans were obviously the ones who were trying to get independence from Britain. And for Britain to hold them back into that state of dependence, they had to go and burn their White House. You know what I mean? So, but when we see America today and we see Canada today, we see them for what they are today, but we forget what they were in the past. And in the past, there was the Tea Party revolution, there was all the Paul Revere and all those people. And they built their society based on protest. You know what I mean? So I say to us, democracy is great, but democracy does not work where the stomach is hungry. Because a hungry man will sell his vote to the first, but not even the highest bidder. He will sell it to the first person that offers him something. You get what I mean? So we have to be very careful of the kind of ways we expect change to come, because change will always come at the expense of certain deprivation that we must suffer, because the status quo always favors the people that have, not the people that have not. So that's what I'm trying to talk about in my poem, that the change we desire, the society we crave, it has to come by, just like what Truman said. He said the tree of liberty must be watered from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. The tree of liberty must be watered from time to time by the blood of patriots and tyrants. So that means if we choose to take out the tyrant, we must be ready to shed our blood. If we are not ready to shed our blood, then the tyrant will rule forever. So Sorosoke is saying that we should speak up. We shouldn't be armchair critics, the ones who say but cannot do. And that's why I talk about the Arab Spring. I talk about what is happening in Kenya, where the people are taken to the streets, and what happened in the NSAS protest in Nigeria. And that's why I talk, because it started after the COVID hibernation and all of that. And I speak about what led to it, the anger and all of that stuff. But yes, it did not wanted to achieve time. But there's one day, even when the people in the Middle East attacked Israel, they call it the 6-day war. It's not a 1-day war. That means whatever struggle we have, it can never be easy. That even though NSAS ended in 10, 15 days, it will still come back again. And that is why I say I hear the chants from the horizon coming again, Sorosoke. And this chants might not be the chants of the people who chanted it at the time when the NSAS protest happened. It will be the chants of the Gen Alphas. And that's why I mentioned that, the Gen Alphas, and even those that are not yet born. They will hear the stories, just like how I've heard about Samoa Machel, how I've heard about Patrice Lumumba and all of that stuff, and how I believe it, how I wrote a play about Thomas Sankara. And when the memory is awakened, just like what I said, that when I hear the chants, my memories are working, my muscles are rising, are warming up for me to join that protest, because that is what has to be done. That is what Sankara died for. That is what all those people died for. That for us to reach that place, utopia as it were, for us to shout Uhuru, we must be ready to lay down our lives on that street of change and become the conceeds in the fields of life. Because the conceed must die for the corn cob to grow.
Wow. So we applaud that these are chilling words, especially when you put Truman and the tyrant and the patriot must both have their blood shed for the tree of liberty. I am loving these poems so much that I have to ask whether they are available in print or whether they are available elsewhere that we can read them again at some point later. And this also goes to you, Ziarly. I think you're honest, but also to hear where we can get your poetry from. Jude.
Yeah, the poem Sorosoke, I came to Ibadan and this morning, and I wrote Sorosoke in the train. So I knew I needed all these poems. So I quickly wrote it in the train. So my poems are not published anywhere. They were written today. I wrote 2 yesterday, and the remaining 4 were written today.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate giving us new poetry. But I mean, still, we have to force you to publish them. Ziarly.
So, in answer to the publishing, I'm working on it.
Right.
Yeah. So by the end of this year, we'll definitely
see.
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic.
I need the audience to, the sound you make when someone is about to say something that you don't want the person to say. Is like, yes. Okay. You guys are, I want to hear you because you have to shush me. So when I put my hand to my lips, you can shush me. Okay. I thought we'll be free to have or the opinion that could not be expressed. And my thing on this matter is it should not cause stress. I thought by now we could show our taking our times to expose our slowly or surprisingly, or that which they labeled as unprintables have been printed. Pay attention, and are now outlawed and have been labeled unmentionables. I thought we will draw what appeared in our peripheral, but unfortunately, that vision must be screened. And if I'm not seeing how they want me to see, then my vision is not 6'6", not another 6. So I thought by now we could play like 2 and my idea of what is 4 is, and that's what I had. The one you missed and forgot to shush. But I cannot say it because when I tried to say me, I thought it was mine. I thought my thoughts were mine. But you would have seen it. Thank you.
Lessons.
Thank you, Jude. Ziarly, for thank you for a masterclass in censorship.
You see, that's exactly what the poem is about.
Yeah, but I also have to say that we performed about 1/3 of the poem for you with the. When we think about censorship, the first thing that comes to mind is, when you consider someone says to you, well, you have freedom of speech, and then you think, well, is there freedom after speech? And those are one of the considerations that would drive a person to self-censor. But is it just me thinking that your poem is about things that must be said but can't be said? Is it about censorship at all?
It's absolutely about censorship. That's why I involved all of us, because all of us do it actually without even thinking about it. An idea you may have and someone's interjection on that idea, you shut them off because maybe you have the louder voice. Our idea of ourselves has been censored. So again, if you came from a household, for example, if you are a Christian, when you think of anything that is not Christian, it becomes evil. It becomes the red tape. It becomes things you should not have any business being a part of. But how is that? You are a human being. You are Ghanaian. You are African. You are experiencing these things that your ancestors before you experienced. It's in the wind. The same wind has been blowing since the beginning of time. Okay, and so how can we not talk about the things we want to talk about so easily? I mean, these are things that, for example, a hungry child will be put to what? A woman's breast. What is she feeding the child with? The nipple of her breast. But you can't say that. You can't even show that. It doesn't even make sense. But we've gone from being babies to being full-blown adults, and we are still carrying on this agenda. This poem is exactly that. It talks about censorship. It talks about your idea of something and someone telling you can't say it. And we have ideas, and the government says we can't say it. So,
yeah, I was going to link it to politics myself, but you have linked it at the end. Because ultimately, I think the power of coercion that the state has in making people not say the things which, even if you are, and I think that that power of coercion can be overt and covert, right? So you are suffering or you are having a hard time, but authority can tell you that you're actually having a good.
Yeah, in this country, it's worse off in that country.
So many different perspectives, and thank you for that. That line of poems that we heard was focusing on African politics, and I thank both Jude and Ziarly for giving us these perspectives. We'll move on. There's another theme I want to introduce, and this has to do with history. We would admit that our current view of society, our contemporary interactions with the world actually flow from history and our perspectives of history. And I want us now to basically try and hear some poems that have to do with your thinking, your perspective of history. Who will start, Ziarly or Jude?
Yeah, I could start.
Okay.
Take the same order. Okay. So this poem is called As We Dey Do Am. So which is pidgin, Nigerian pidgin. I don't know in Ghana if you guys say it the same way as we they do it, which means as we do it, as we have been doing it. You get okay. Manacles of excuses from seasons past, still shackle ankles that bleed in raucous sorrow. Metal skin digging ridges of pain on human skin, an inheritance from those who didn't do what the eve of the past needed them to do. Sleeping at the wheel of progress was what caused our collective regress, fingers pointing from afar at those behind as reasons for the slow march of we who want change. But let us pause and rewind. Pieces of value on a chessboard. Should the bishop have moved as the rook does? And the galloping knight move lethargically like the pawn, one step forward, yet lethal only on the diagonal? Or the king bare its fangs like the queen, even though its survival is the reason for the game? Let this question stew in the aqua of reason, like boiled eggs hugged tight by spicy shito, to soak, imbibe, and become what it was not at the very beginning. Think. Yes, think about the reason our father's father blamed his father's father for first becoming that which has made him become this thing he was, which we loathe to be. Blaming those who came before for what we fail to see that we are, and those who come after will also be. Tongues who complain habitually while living in rigor mortis, talking like diarrhea and doing like constipation, saying, if not this, if not that, and because of, I will not be who I am, not be where I am, not have what I have. But when would it stop? This thing we egregiously do. When do we hold treasure in the doing just as we do in the complaining? Sowing so that the silo would be full during the harvest. Not blaming the rain for not falling, even when we planted no seeds to be watered by the deluge. Time exists for those who want and those who do not. It rewards and it punishes in unequal measure. The deserving receiving what the undeserving receive. So what is the point of it all? I hear you ask in ponderment and wonderment, since unfairness is the very nature of the future, as light is the only language of the beaming sun. 'Tis the reason of one who is in temporary repose, one who is me, scarred yet fighting as a soldier on the battlefield, showing with the carcass of those who came before me, weary of the battle that oscillates, but focused on winning the war that liberates. He who anchors his ship on the seabed of excuses never finds the comfort of the shore. But he who invokes knowledge lifts anchor and braves the storm, knowing that there is no guarantee for a welcoming shore. Is he who may one day be embraced by that shore. For trying after learning from what was before is the audition for winning what lies in front. And those who use history as a trampoline to vault over obstacles, not a microscope to magnify them, will be the lords of the present and the masters of the future. That's it. Thank you.
Jude, again, an angle that I didn't expect. Looking at history and looking at it with the thinking of blame. That many people can actually blame their current woes on history. It's a kind of a different perspective. But then you also situate it in the sense of how history can vault people into a positive future. Is this one of the new poems first, or is it an older poem? Before we go into the
this poem is like it's like an hour 20 minutes old.
I guess newer as we go along. So just maybe a few words beyond the lines of the poem, because at least from my perspective, it was quite clear. I was really interested in the ending as you linked it to using our history or using history as a way to capture the future?
Yeah. For me, very interesting. I wrote this from the perspective of someone who left Nigeria 20 years thereabout. I've lived in Canada for 20 years. I was born and bred in Nigeria. And then I went to a society where I saw the very challenges of existence being right there in your face. And these people rising up to confront it. They blamed no one. Even if they blamed, it was to learn. And that which they learned, they used to conquer their present so as to capture the future. And I came back to Nigeria to give back. I've been there for 4 years now. For 4 years now. And then everywhere I go to, it's the same blame game. It's the same blame game on history, on the past, on, oh, it's these people that did, if these people did not do, and all of that stuff. And then that's why I use that word. They are stuck in rigor mortis. Rigor mortis is, of course, the condition of a corpse, a dead body, where you cannot move. And I say we cannot keep blaming and think we can move into the future. If we look back into history, history should be an enablement. It should be an empowerment. That is what it should be. Either we're learning lessons so as to apply to the actions we're willing to take now to be able to win the battles we need to fight. We do not just look at history just for blame game. Blame, and sit down on the spot and not move. So that is the essence of the poem, saying, yes, we need history. We need the past. Someone who doesn't know the past wouldn't even know where the future is, as in where they are walking to. There's no barometer to gauge what development is about. But that is what you use. You learn the lessons. You learn about the victories, and you also learn about the failures. And while learning about the failures, you learn about the reason for the failure so that you do not repeat it. You get what I mean? So that is what history is supposed to do. And history is also supposed to introduce you to a certain vision that you might not have known about. I came to Ghana and the play Sankara, the granddaughter of Osage for Kwame Nkrumah, performed in it. And we sat down and we spoke about so many things. She told me about her grandfather that I didn't even know that the textbooks do not teach. You know what I mean? And when I even meet children or compatriots or people who have worked with people who were great men in the past, when they teach you things, they'll say, oh, this is why this thing happened and this is why this thing failed. And then I learn it so that when I confront or I get to junctions in my life or in the struggle, I remember, oh, Sankara confronted this one, Sangor confronted, this is what they did with it. And then I move on, because at every point in time, there will always be heroes, there will always be, will I say, courageous men, and there will always be cowards. But it doesn't mean that the coward of yesterday is necessarily a true coward, as in coward all over, how will I put it? Will not be that because someone was a coward in one battle, means they weren't heroes in the other battles they fought. There is a reason why XYZ happened in this battle, and it's for us to learn it. So that even when we march, and people fall out of the phalanx, we can understand how it happened in the past and how to encourage them and give them that which they need to be able to fight these battles to the very end. Because at the end of the day, what does the enemy do? He seeks to divide, to conquer. He seeks to find the weakness amongst us. And we will keep on being fodder. We will keep on falling in the battlefield if we do not look back in history. But when we look back at history, not to blame, but to learn, to be inspired, to be empowered, so that when we come correct. We come correct. We might lose the battle, but we will win the war.
Very important perspective, Ziarly. And for our audiences, I must mention that we are approaching the end because the time is just running after 8, but we have done just like half the themes. So we'll have to figure out a way of concluding nicely, but we still have maybe about 10 or more minutes to go. Ziarly, let's hear your response.
Okay. The winds carry a different kind of song. But they say they have been here since the earth was formed. We no longer listen to it standing outside, holding hands and with our eyes closed. We stood wondering what the future will be. I wasn't there in the beginning, but you were in front of me. I hung like cowries in your hair, so I heard it when your heart was beating. Was this from the future, or was this from the past? Is it something that riles you, or something that you fear? We have been here before, saying the same things, doing the same things, being the same beings. They took all of us and liberated us some way, feeding us with foreign ideas and saying we should say they were ours, they are yours. Our rebellion did not end. He told us to focus on these ends. The lever blades in the factories have bent. They're no longer open to let in the air. We stand together holding hands. Social media invitation, meet me there. This time, our factories are riddled with weeds, and resounding on their walls are the sounds of praise. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Ziarly, you are taking a very, very sharp dig, at what is happening in terms of industrial growth and very rapid deindustrialization also. When you look at the churches which have taken the place of industry.
True.
But it's something that, again, I picked up from your poem. It struck me quite strongly when you speak about we have been here before. And then I began to think about what people would point to as a cyclical nature of history. Like everything is, they would say that history repeats itself, and you have situated the human being in those cycles. We've been here before, but is it something that is then inescapable? Will the churches collapse, be replaced by industry, and then the industry goes down and churches come up again? What are you saying about that?
It's amazing how listening to the poetry, Jude's own into mine, and how I'm understanding it. He said something about us making some changes based on our knowledge of the past.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I said we've been here before. Now, I didn't know who Sankara was, but we have Sankara Seko. And I used to ask, so why do we have Sankara Seko? Then someone said to me, oh, because he was a very correct man. That was the English. He was a very correct man. So I looked into him and I realized that, we've had people who were principled and who knew what they wanted to do. And in implementing that, there was visible change in our time. Now, presently, we've heard of coups that we thought were outmoded and were not going to ever happen. But it was the same mentality, the same agenda. So saying we've been here before is like looking in the pool and seeing a reflection and then seeing a painting of the same face that is hanging, that's maybe in a museum, and that's been there for before your grandmother was even born. That's amazing.
It is actually, and I'm quite interested in your reference to not knowing about Sankara until you asked about the Sankara circle.
Yes,
which again strikes me as highlighting the importance of monuments.
True.
Monuments, naming places, streets after people, because otherwise the reference to their memory will be lost. Okay, let's see. I have been alerted to the fact that there is a hand up in the audience, so maybe we can take a question as we begin to wind up. Is there in fact a hand up?
Yes.
Okay, so the microphone will come to you.
That's all right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So please go ahead.
No, sorry, it was an impulsive hand. I was struck by what you said about monuments. I think more broadly, though, the importance of history I find it remarkable that we are talking about a Sankara not known amongst us. But, and I may be dating myself, but, it strikes me that the job of maintaining the things that are important to us in our own school curricula is not being done. It is, a serious indictment that within our lifetime, a name like Sankara holds no significance to children of a land like Ghana, of Burkina Faso, of Nigeria. It is deeply disturbing. So we haven't, again, historically, we haven't really moved forward in that sense. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Then also, beyond monuments, it also suggests that writers, because they can, in their writing, actually imprint these things in people's mind and make sure that their memory is not lost, which is one reason why I was very impressed also by Jude's play about Sankara, I think that, of course, the importance of history and the preservation of it cannot be gainsaid. There's another hand. Please, let's take that, please.
Hi. So, by extension to what the gentleman said about Sankara, I was old enough, even though I was young, right, when Sankara was alive, right? And I feel like some of these stories have been truncated because of partisan political agendas, right? Because we had a Sankara circle, it's no longer there, right? It's been renamed. It wasn't given.
Yeah, that's true.
The location wasn't even changed, right? In effect, it was wiped out of some aspect of the storytelling, right? Ziarly, I know that you have a bit of experience with protests. How do we tell our stories with protests?
That's a good one.
Yeah, very. And again, thanks for. I think the Sankara is now Akwaji or something like that.
I don't know. I'm just realizing now. I really don't know. I thought it was too.
Yeah,
that's
terrible. Okay. And you have experience with protests? You've been chased in the streets. I mean, let's keep that one as one of the Okay, so what I'm going to do is just highlight what the other topics that we wanted to talk about. We wanted to have the poets read on society, perspectives on an ideal sort of future. What do they think about when it comes to predicting a good future for us? And then finally, we would have ended with the poet choosing to read a poem on any theme. But I think that what we can do is to shrink all these three into one and propose to the poets who we have here ready to actually do the three. Propose that you choose from one of these, either a theme of your own choosing, or you choose to read a poem on society, any pertinent points on the topic, on our current society, contemporary society, or to talk about your vision of the future. I think I leave it to you to choose any of these whilst we begin the wind down sequence for tonight.
Okay. I think I'll choose. Let me just look.
Okay.
So I think I'll just talk about. Okay. I'll just, since time is gone, just talk about society, and commentary on it. Okay. So this poem is called "The Old Man," and it was inspired by an old man I met today. Okay. The Old Man. Tread bare clothes on wrinkled skin, slacking muscles on old bones, eyes unseen and parched lips, ears poorly hearing and toothless grin. He stood at the edge of the thoroughfare, metal bowl in hand filled with dirty naira notes. Surprisingly strong voice like a megaphone. Please help an old man to whom time and wisdom haven't been kind. Bare feet with calloused soles, thick with ridges that screamed of pain. I forked out clean notes, placed them carefully amongst its siblings who had seen better days, and asked in tandem, my voice soft like sea breeze. Sir, how has time and wisdom not been kind to you? He smiled, toothless gum and gangling tongue. Time lied to me that old age would not come soon, so I spent my youth focusing on my youth. And wisdom lied to me that I was wise, so I believed that the country owed me and not me the country. Confused I was, so I asked again. Smiling he remained as he responded again. If I knew old age was like dusk as youth was like dawn, each the shadow of the other, I would have sold for long seasons instead of short. If I knew wisdom came with time and experience, I would have understood that what the country gives, another gave to it. So what I desired from the country, I should have first given to it. I sighed. Then I asked him, Sir, can you please share more light? And he said, that which I asked from my country, I have to have been ready to give it to my country. Confused, I stood in front of him. He didn't miss his beats as he continued. I give to my country that it may give to another, like the feeds the clouds, that clouds may give rain to the river. Each one feeding the other, each one being the reason for the other. My son, it has taken me age and time to understand these truths. But since I focused my youth on my youth, here I am with a pen in my hand.
It's so powerful in this so much. Yeah. And so graphic. One would have thought that, in fact, the old man did say all these things to you. But I can only maybe make some sort of a request that these poems would like to collect them. And if for nothing at all, just share them with all those who have been with us tonight. I could listen to this piece over and over again just because of the way he plays to the time and wisdom, not having been kind to the old man, and explains it quite nicely. I mean, I suppose that as you grow older, as Jude and I, Ziarly, you still have some mileage ahead. You begin to see that you actually don't have that much time in the world. So thank you, Jude. That was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Want to share with us?
Okay, so I mean, she was a teacher in some backwater village where the dust wraps itself around her body when it stood where it stood. She reminded herself, these things she did do before the kiddies, for whom she is in servitude. For the kiddies, who are like light bulbs moving nearer and nearer till they disconnect, reconnect. For the kiddies. My father shared his wisdom at the point of none of us were drunk. The tick-tock of the wall clock reminded us it was late and none of us were drunk. We passed between us the fears and ideas, but none of us were drunk. The bottle of rum stood on the table, unopened, untouched. None of us were drunk. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe a comment on your style, because there's this always a repeated motive, and this poem actually reminded me of a few lines from Okigbo, if I can recollect. When I think this is from Watermaid, he speaks about a shrub amongst the poplars, and he also has a repeated motive of not being drunk. Well, I mean, this is, I'm just pulling this from memory, so I mean, but why that there was importance that the bottle was unopened and nobody was drunk. I'll come back to the children. The children, but that was also very important to me.
Usually when you're with older people and they're talking about important or heavy matters, it's easier to have that conversation when you are intoxicated, because alcohol loosens the tongue. But you are having that kind of dialogue, and there's wisdom that is being shared, and it wasn't on the back of alcohol. There's no loose talk. That's what I meant by none of us were drunk. So it was very intentional.
Very intentional. Is this thing about Numan San?
You catch my.
But then I found it very important that you highlighted the fact that for a mother or for a parent in general, most of what they do actually is for the kiddies.
True.
Yeah, and so that it was highlighted in your poem, I felt was an important thing to point out. I mean, I guess also it connects a bit with what Jude was saying in terms of old age and wisdom. Jude, we have to find out whether this old man actually in giving or in not giving to the country would expect that would include not giving to the children, to the kiddies, because that should be a given. People as they grow older have a sort of responsibility to the young, whether they are parents or not.
Yeah, I'm just speaking to that, because I think the first place of a writer is to, as I said earlier when I was introducing myself, is to observe and then ask the questions. And just like an engineer does with reverse engineering, you ask the what ifs and you walk back and you ask those silent questions. This old man is here at this thoroughfare begging for money. As I said his feet was unshod and there were ridges. You could have seen his heels. I thought he was. I just looking at it, I felt pain. You look at something and you just feel the person's pain. And I asked myself, I said, this man should be like in his 70s, late 70s or 80s. He's here. Doesn't he have a family? Doesn't he have a wife? Doesn't he have all of that stuff? And it speaks volume. In terms of, that's why I said focusing my youth on my youth. Because that's what a lot of we do at this point in our life. You see the guy who is just blowing whatever monies you give him. He's just living the life, treating his wife bad and treating his children, just like we talked about children now, not investing in them and all of that. Is it because of things they did in their youth that would leave them being so alone in their old age, standing at the edge of a thoroughfare, blaming every other person? Because when I went to him and I actually gave him the money, that's why I said clean notes. I put it amongst the dirty notes in his bowl, and I said, good afternoon, sir. I don't know whether, because he had cataract, so I don't know whether he could actually see me or not. And I see, cataracts, whether it's all white, and all of that. And I said, Papa, at this time you still they do this thing. He say, Oga, na country, now this country do me like this. That is why I said, still blaming. You get what I mean? Still blaming the country. The country owed you. But what did you give the country? Question you have to ask. What did you? That's why John F. Kennedy said, ask not what you can do for your country, but what your country can do for you. and it feeds. And that's why you see that the end of the poem. I said, just like the river gives to the clouds, so that the clouds will give back to the river, because evaporation, and then so they feed each other. It's a circle. Imagine if the river refuses to give water to the clouds. What will happen to the river? It will dry over time, right? Because there'll be nothing to replenish it. And that is how I believe that we must understand the relationship between the follower and the leader, the citizen and the nation, and all of that. Because even the countries we're all we're all running to, London, the UK, the US, that is what they live by. That symbiotic relationship where the citizen owns the country. He owns it as his personal commonwealth. He will. Sorry, I'm sure we're running out of time. I'll just segue. I have a friend who was complaining about a pothole in Nigeria where the axle of her car broke. This, my friend, is very wealthy. She went on and on and on. And I said to her, you know what? There are two things that made the Western society succeed. Number one was the weather. The weather was a punisher. They didn't care whether you were rich or you were poor. If you did not make hay while the sun shines, you will pay for it. You know what I mean? That was one. And then number two was precedent. Everybody took ownership. So someone like you now that is complaining about that pothole, you have the money. You have the wherewithal. Take the municipality to court. Sue them for that pothole. That is how change comes. If everybody can take that kind of ownership, put your pocket where your mouth is. How can you be complaining about a pothole as if you are this defenseless, poor kind of woman? She was telling me that her chair was bought for 1.5 million, which is like 150,000 cedis in your country. And you can buy a chair for 150,000 cedis and you can't take the municipality to court for a pothole that broke your axle. Take the municipality to court. Whether you lose, it is right there in the house. The next person that comes, the judge will have something. That is how they build it. That is why Rosa Parks did not stand up in the bus. She did not wait for the whole Alabama to come to the bus first before she refused to stand or sit down. She took ownership. And that is why the river feeds the cloud, so that the cloud will feed the river. Basically. So that is that relationship with the old man.
Fantastic. I can't think of a better way to bring the discussion to a close. The whole idea of a circle of life, a circle within a circle all the time. Thank you very much, Jude. I really appreciate your time. Ziarly, you and I, we're in Accra here. Jude is joining from Ibadan, so we will continue the conversation. I appreciate your making time to be with us.
Thank you.
The work that you are doing with the advocacy and also with restarting some of the poetry things in your neighborhood, I think they're worthy of commendation as well. And for all those who have joined us, those on Zoom, those on IG, and finally, those who are here with us, I'd like to say thank you very much. It's been a great evening, and have a good night.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Namaste. Namaste. Remember, Africa for Africa. Africa for Africa.
I agree.
Okay.